Good afternoon and welcome to the City of Concord Measure V Commercial Rent Relief Grant Program webinar. I'm Marie Suvanson with the City of Concord. Thank you so much for tuning in. A few housekeeping items. Everyone is on mute. If you have a question, please place it in the chat box. It will be answered at the end during Q&A. We recommend that you keep your format in speaker view to ensure the best experience. This is a City of Concord program being administered by the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce. However, Chamber members will not receive priority. All eligible small businesses are welcome to apply. With that said, I'd like to welcome Kevin Cabral, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, to get us started.
Thank you, Marie. We recognize that these funds will not make up for all the financial loss experienced by our business community. We hope it provides some relief. Hopefully, the slide deck will answer any questions you may have about the program. So let's get started. The Measure V Commercial Rent Relief Program will provide a one-time grant of $10,000 to small businesses that have experienced adverse financial impact due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Funded by Measure V sales tax revenue, the program will provide commercial rent relief to 95 small businesses within the City of Concord. The application opens April 26th at 8 a.m. and closes Friday, May 14th at 5 p.m. So you have 19 days to apply. Grant recipients will receive a commercial rent relief grant of $10,000 paid directly to landlords and does not have to be paid back. The City of Concord will be issuing checks directly to the landlord after all required documents and signatures are received. To be eligible to apply for this program, a business must meet the following requirements listed here. All of these requirements are also listed on the City of Concord's website. A physical location within the City of Concord limits, active Concord business license issued no later than June 30th, 2020, and no more than 25 employees as of June 30th, 2020. Additional eligibilities includes at least $10,000 in commercial rent arrears from March 31st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021, consistent with the Concord eviction moratorium, which states that a tenant that has lost income due to COVID-19 is protected from being evicted. There is a link in the chat to the eviction moratorium for detailed information. And the commercial lease showing the business as the master tenant and not subletting. There are examples of some businesses not eligible to receive the Commercial Rent Relief Program grant. These are listed on the City of Concord's website. Some of the businesses not eligible for this grant include businesses with over 25 employees as of June 30th, 2020, lending investment institutions and insurance companies, gambling facilities, businesses with no physical storefront, and nonprofit organizations. Additional examples of businesses not eligible are the businesses operating outside of the Concord city limits, franchise businesses that are not independently owned and operated within the City of Concord, businesses engaged in illegal activity per state, local, or federal regulations. Again, a more detailed list is available on the City of Concord's website. The small business is the applicant for this grant. The landlord is required to participate by signing the MOU and return to the small business to upload when applying. Here is the last page of the Memorandum of Understanding, where you can see where the tenant and landlord will each sign and include their business license number. Please note that every line has to be filled out or your application may be rejected. Here is the entire MOU that will be signed between tenants and landlord that outline the agreement of the grant. You can scroll down and between you and your landlord, look at this agreement over carefully. And then at the very bottom of this grant application, very bottom of the MOU, there's the box that all that information from the landlord and the tenant needs to be filled out in completion. The following slides outline the landlord expectation as summarized in the MOU. To receive funding through this program, a landlord must meet the following expectations. Apply grant funds to the applicant's rent arrears immediately upon receipt. Sign the memorandum of understanding and declaring intent to continue leasing to the tenant in current space through 2021 and attest that the reported rent arrears are deferred payments consistent with the Concord eviction moratorium. Additional examples of landlord expectations include the landlord must attest that the applicant is the master lease tenant located at the business address provided. Provide a Concord business license number written in the memorandum of understanding and sign the MOU confirming all of the above is correct and true at the time of application. A more detailed list is available on the City of Concord's website. Funding priority will be given to the following: retail, restaurants, and personal service establishments as listed. Remaining grant funding will be allocated to applicants that meet the small business eligibility requirement and landlord expectations. So now that we have discussed who is eligible for the City of Concord Measure V Commercial Rent Relief Program, let's discuss what that application process looks like. The application link will become available through the City of Concord website on Monday, April 26th at 8 a.m. Businesses will have until Friday, May 14th at 5 p.m. to complete the application and provide required documents. Applications will only be accepted through the online application during the designated window of time. If you have questions about submitting the application, please email grantprogram@concordchamber.com or call the Concord Chamber of Commerce at 925-685-1181. You will be directed to an online application where each business will complete the form and upload the required documents that will outline in a couple of minutes. Again, the time frame to apply is Monday, April 26th at 8 a.m. till Friday, May 14th at 5 p.m. The small business will be completing the application for this grant. The landlord must sign the MOU and return it to the small business to upload when completing the application. After you submit your application, you will receive an email from grantprogram@concordchamber.com with confirmation of a receipt of the completed application. Please keep this email for your records. This does not mean that you will receive the grant. This is just a confirmation email. There are two documents we require to complete the application process: a commercial lease showing the applicant as the master tenant, and the MOU signed by both the small business applicant and the landlord. In addition, applicants must provide their Concord business license number and a monthly breakdown of commercial rent arrears from March 31st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021 in the online application form. This should reflect the agreement you have with your landlord. You will see on the screen an example of what you will see on the application when including your monthly breakdown. You will see 12 boxes from April 2020 to March 2021. If you are not in rent arrears, please put $0. At the bottom of this section of the application, please total your rent arrears for the 12 months. On the application, you will self-certify that the information is correct. The selection process will consist of initial screening of qualified applications based on priority criteria we discussed before, followed by a lottery should the number of qualified applicants exceed the amount of funding available. The City of Concord and/or Concord Chamber of Commerce may request additional documents if necessary to verify that the business meets the program eligibility requirements. Applicants will receive a status notification whether they will receive the grant or not by email on Friday, May 21st. If you have questions regarding the Measure V Commercial Rent Relief Program, please contact the Concord Chamber of Commerce at 925-685-1181 or email the chamber at grantprogram@concordchamber.com. If a business has questions and is Spanish speaking, there's a Spanish translator available via phone or email using the same contact information listed above. When the application is live on the website, please feel free to contact the chamber for additional assistance. We're now going to open up the Q&A portion of this webinar. If you have additional comments or questions, please add them to the chat now.
Thank you, Kevin, for the explanation of the grant program. We do have a couple questions that were submitted through the Q&A in the chat already. We've been answering some of them by typing in the answers, so if you guys can see that, check those out there. But one of the questions that I thought would be good for everyone to hear was, is it a first come, first serve, or will they take all the applications first and after May 14th, then they will look at the applications?
Yes, it is. We'll take in all the applications first, and they'll be qualified whether they're retail, restaurant, personal service establishments. And then if all their documentation is in and correct, they will be accepted. We'll also help people if they don't have all the documents. We'll reach out and try to get all of the information. And then pending on how many we get, if we're over 95, there will be a lottery selection system, similar how we did the last grant. So everybody has a chance. So we highly encourage that you put your information in.
Great. Another question, the mailer states at least $10,000 in rent arrears. Does this mean any lesser amount is not eligible for grant relief?
Yes, the grant is designed for businesses that are $10,000 or more in rent arrears with their landlord from the date specified with the grant. We do encourage you to contact the chamber and we can talk about it, but that is the specific dollars of rent arrears to a landlord for this grant.
Thank you. How about tenants? This kind of goes with the last question. How about tenants that was able to pay for those rents during those months?
This specific grant isn't for that, and we understand that, but I still encourage you to get some information or give us a call, and definitely be aware that the possibility of a future grant, no guarantees on that, but just in case there is, and those businesses that have been paying their rent, we applaud you, and job well done. However, this specific grant does not cover anything but rent arrears.
Right, so there was another question. So you do have to be behind in rent to be eligible. And as Kevin said, the answer is yes, at least $10,000.
Yes.
Does the landlord require a Concord business license?
Yes, they do. And I believe the contact for that is in the chat. It's cityofconcord.org 378 business licenses. So I would reach out to the city and start that process as a landlord to get your business license. They're open to discussions on that.
Great. After filling out the MOU, how will it be uploaded? Kevin, if you don't mind, I'll take this one.
Okay, thank you.
So on the City of Concord website, which we've put in the chat a couple times, which is where you will find the link for the application. It's not open until April 26th, so you will not be able to fill it out prior to that date. But on April 26th at 8 a.m. it will open, and then on May 14th at 5 p.m. it will close. So after both the landlord and the tenant sign the MOU, since the tenant is the one applying for this grant, they will take the MOU, and there's 2 spots to upload the documents that are required. So the MOU and the master lease, those are the 2 documents that will be uploaded. So at the very bottom of the application, you'll go through, put in all the information that is being asked of the business. And then at the very bottom, there are 2 spots to upload those 2 documents. Restaurant or retail has priority or equal for all business. So can you go over those priorities again?
The 3 priorities are restaurant, retail, and services, personal services like barbers, nail salons, massage therapy salons. Those types of things will give the first priority, and they need to be brick and mortar stores. We recognized, and the city has recognized, that those are the ones that we're trying to target specifically for this grant.
So this is a question for the landlord. So if I'm a landlord and multiple of my apartment renters owe rent, can I pass this info to them so they can apply, knowing that they have to be behind $10,000 or more to be qualified? Again, I just want to be clear that this is a commercial rent program, so rent relief program for commercial businesses. But if there are multiple businesses that you have in your space that qualify for this, please encourage all of them to apply.
Yes, that's exactly right. Hey, Melissa, would we want to go through the MOU? Is that easily put up on the screen, and we can scroll through it if people have questions on kind of specifically what needs to be filled out?
Sure, let me get it up for everyone and then share the screen.
There's a lot of information on this document, but don't let that keep you from filling it out and submitting. So basically, at the beginning of this, you're just going to need your business name, your business type, the landlord name, the leasing entity type, and then the leasing and business address in that very first part. And then pretty much all the information about the understanding between the city, the landlord, and the tenant are all in this document, and as it reflects what's needed for the Measure V Commercial Rent Relief Program. And one thing I want to stop on are the 3 things. You'll need to sign this MOU. You'll need to complete the application form, including an accounting of deferred rent from the March 31st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021, specified by month signed by both lessee and landlord. And that's going to be on your application that's online. And then you're going to need a copy of the property lease. That's not a lot of information, so it should be fairly simple for anyone that's really needs this grant to get a hold of those documents and work with their landlord and tenant to get some signatures and information on this doc, and then get it to the chamber. Then if we keep scrolling down, we went over kind of this last page specifically in the presentation, but it's worthy to go over it again just to show that there's not a ton of information that's necessary. So the landlord and the tenant will need to work together to fill out this last page and get it back over to the chamber. And that's this box, we're almost there, that has, the landlord, and it's just, name, business license, and who's doing it for both the landlord and the leasee. And then, when this and both need to sign one document. We can't have two separate documents. That's important to note. So make sure that everybody does the same document, scans it up into their computer, and then puts it into the application at the link that opens the 26th. And as always, any questions at all about that, please do not hesitate to reach out to the chamber. There's 4 of us here. We're willing to work with you and help you in any way that we can.
Great. We do have a few more questions that have been coming in while we were explaining the MOU.
Okay.
One is, let's say our Concord location is one of a company that has, let's say, 5 locations in the state of California. No, not roping in other locations, obviously, or does the sole location of the business in the state have to be in Concord?
The location of the business has to have a physical Concord address with a current Concord business license. That answers that question, right?
Yes. Can we fill out the application ahead of the 26th since the MOU is required to be signed by the landlord? Unfortunately, no, the application, like I said earlier, does not open until 8 a.m. on the 26th. However, you can get a head start and look over the MOU and get the signatures done ahead of time. Get the MOU signed, understand it, get your lease ready. So when the application opens, you don't have to go out and get all of this information that you have it prepared for you.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I mean, there is a 14, is it? Oh, no, excuse me. It's a 19-day window. However, 19 days happens quickly. So get the MOU and start working with your landlord. That's excellent advice.
Does the MOU limit the landlord's ability for eviction due to the rent rearing?
Due to the rent arrearing limit. Well, what it does is this understanding between you and your landlord. That's why it's important to have this communication with your landlord. It extends your option not to be evicted as long as the landlord agrees and signs through the end of the year. So through December 31st, this maybe gives an additional time for a landlord not to evict the tenant. That's why it's very important the communication happens between the landlord and the tenant. There is relief, and it is stated very clearly in the MOU.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to go through the questions here. One question, we are dry cleaners, do we qualify? All businesses are encouraged to apply that meet the eligibility requirements. It's just that there's a set of 3 priority industries that we've preset, the restaurants, the retail, and the personal services, but definitely still apply.
And as long as you're $10,000 in rent arrears.
Kevin, can you explain how the chamber is going to choose who's getting the funding again?
Yes, as you know, we'll vet it out to make sure everybody has the proper paperwork in and it's in order, and both the landlord and the tenant have signed the MOU, as well as meets the other criterion of, no more than 25 employees, a physical location within the city of Concord, an active Concord business license, and at least $10,000 in rent arrear. The tenant, the commercial lease showing that the business is the master tenant, not subletting the space. And then, as we get all those in, anything, above 95, we will then put them in the lottery. However, there is preferential in line to retail, restaurants, and personal services.
There was a question about the MOU being signed by the landlords, that it may be difficult for the landlord to sign. Unfortunately, the landlord does have to sign it for you to be eligible and qualify for this grant. That might require then you printing it, signing it, scanning it, and sending it over to your landlord and them doing the same. It is important that you do have both signatures on one of the MOUs to upload. And if it comes to a point where you need help with that, uploading it or scanning it and sending it to someone, call the chamber and we will help you as much as we can.
Yep. I recommend starting with your landlord, sending them the MOU, opening up the line of communication, letting them know that there's a possibility for a $10,000 grant, that the landlord will receive the money directly to them, that does not have to be paid back. And then they can send you electronically back the document signed by them. And then if you need to print it, sign the same document, and then scan it, like Melissa said, if that's a hurdle for you, we can walk you through it, help you out, do whatever you need.
What if the tenant had over $10,000 deferred rent, but paid back part of it and no longer owes a total of $10,000 as of the March 31st, 2021 date?
If the landlord deferred some rent and at any point in time during you need to be $10,000 in arrears with your landlord, at least during the stated time that the program points out. That's pretty much the bottom line. If you're not in 10,000 arrears during that time, then you are not going to qualify for this grant. But I still, contact the chamber and we can walk through it and get a little more detail on where you're at. But these grants are very specific in the term. So, that's what we follow too. They're designed this way. It's specifically to help the segment of people that's over $10,000 in arrears to their landlord.
Okay. What happens if a tenant receives a grant and the money is paid to the landlord and then the tenant stops paying the future current rent?
Could you ask that question again, Melissa?
What happens if a tenant receives a grant and the money is paid to the landlord and then the tenant stops paying the future rent that's due?
That's not something, that I can comment on or design. That would be very unfortunate. And I don't think, that would be a good thing in any way, shape, or form. But there is a level of trust in here between the landlord and the tenant. That's why that communication is so important. And that will be something that between the landlord and the tenant to work out.
I'll answer this one, Kevin. Are late fees considered part of the outstanding rents? It's to my understanding, according to the Concord eviction moratorium, which we've linked a couple times in the chat and we'll link it again right now, that late fees weren't supposed to be charged during this time. So I would recommend going over the Concord eviction moratorium again, or give us a call and we can discuss that further. If a tenant rents 2 spaces, one retail and one warehouse storage, can their deferred rent be combined to meet the $10,000?
It is for the retail space, the warehouse space. And, that could be a unique situation if the warehouse space is also part of the retail space, but really the grant is looking at retail space only. as long as it's $10,000 in arrears. It's very specific.
This person's a landlord and asked, I've applied for rent relief through the state. Because we still don't know whether or not we get it, should I have my tenant apply for this as well?
Absolutely. This is a grant. This is if your tenant is in rent arrears to you, your commercial tenant, then I highly recommend that you do this because there's a good opportunity to get some grant money that doesn't have to be paid back.
There's been a couple comments and questions about the travel industry being heavily impacted due to the pandemic. Definitely still apply if you meet the eligibility requirements. We always recommend that you still apply. And again, if you have questions about any of this, give us a call or shoot us an email at grantprogram@concordchamber.com. Kevin, can you talk about the lottery and how that's going to work?
The lottery was very successful on the last grant we did for $5,000 for small businesses. And how it works is, we take all of the applicants, and once, we vet them out through priority, and then what's left over is we put them in a lottery, and it's through a system through Excel. It works very well. And it's, the push of a button, and we record it so it's transparent on how it all went down, because it's very important that all businesses have an opportunity. And so, that's how it works. It's a pretty simple process, but it has a very good, it's a good way of doing it. It isn't like we're pulling names out of a hat or anything like that. So it's, it's really a good way of doing it. We were happy with the results last time. We felt that they were fair and well done. That being said, that's why you need to get all your information together. You need to get it in, to make sure that you qualify by meeting all the parameters.
Will the DocuSign signatures be accepted on the MOU? Yes, electronic forms of that are accepted. However, we won't be able to place that into DocuSign for you and the landlord, or the tenant and the landlord, to be able to sign it. So as long as you can still get to us when you're uploading the MOU that has both signatures and all the information needed on the MOU, as long as you can still upload that and we can see it, however you get that to us is okay. Again, the MOU is available on the city's website, and it is here in the chat a few times. You guys can access it early and start to go over it. To confirm, the landlord of the Concord property must have a Concord business license along with the tenant. Yes, that is correct. Both the landlord and the tenant need to have a business license, and we'll include that information again in the chat, as well of the website that you can go onto the City of Concord's website and look at the business licensing. And then again, if you guys have questions, just give us a call and we'll work through it with you.
Yeah, we say that a lot. Call us at the chamber and we'll work through with you. We understand there's unique situations in every door. We've been, pounding the pavement here in Concord, spreading the word on this program. So, if do not apply without talking to us, so we can make sure that the understanding is very clear on what's necessary, and help you in any way we can to make sure that you get the information it's correctly presented. Because it's $10,000. It's important.
Let's see. The application needs both the landlord and the lessee signature. No, the application is completed by the tenant. So the only thing that the landlord and the lessee needs to sign is the MOU, but the application is taken care of by the business.
Have we mentioned also that we have, did we put the information in Spanish in the chat? Have we put that in there again if there's questions? Thank you.
If my lease will expire on November 21st, am I still eligible?
November 21st. Yeah, you know, even if your lease is expired in the time frame stated, then if you're going month to month, though, that still counts that you're in an agreement with your landlord. So November is in the future, correct? So, you know, this is from, I don't have the dates in front of me again. I get so much library. What are the dates again, Melissa? March through.
You have to be in at least 10,000 rent arrears from March 31st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021.
Yeah. So it sounds like if you're speaking about November, you're speaking in the future. This grant is not for future rent relief. This is for past rent relief.
How do we apply with a month-to-month lease with no signed lease? As long as there is a statement with your landlord of an understanding that there is a month-to-month, then you can still apply. You just then on the application, like we had in the explanation of the application, there are 12 months that you do have to insert how much you're behind on rent. So again, if your rent is $5,000 and you have an agreement to pay your landlord $2,400, you would then insert $2,600 into the line. And then you'll go through that for each month and then total it at the bottom.
And in the MOU, it states something to those terms that your landlord will attest to your rent arrears as stated by you. So, you know, that relationship between you and your landlord is the trust. So it's stated that way in the document.
I have to pay $6,000 to my landlord. Am I eligible to apply? Again, it has to be at least $10,000 in rent arrears to your landlord. So if that $6,000 is for 1 month and you have multiple months of that, as long as it's over $10,000, you can still be eligible to apply, but we are still encouraging you to apply anyways. Did I just hear both the landlord and the tenant has to be located in Concord?
No, the tenant store needs to be in the city of Concord. Your landlord does not need to be in the city of Concord.
My lease has many pages, and because of the length of time of the pandemic, I will need to submit 2. Will the upload accept multiple leases, being that there are many pages? We are asking that it's just 2 documents, the MOU and the lease. So if you can combine those, that's great. If you have any problems with that, just reach out to us and we can work out a way to get those uploaded correctly. My tenants have been in the building a long time. Do you need the original lease in every extension?
I would, the original would be the best, but if the extension is proof that you are still in an arrangement as a tenant and landlord, I think that would suffice. If you could get us that information as soon as possible, you know, or contact the chamber to just let's make sure that that's okay. So please, if you have, you know, special circumstances, the sooner the better, so we can, you know, make sure that you're served properly.
There's a couple questions in the Q&A regarding the lottery again. Just to reiterate, there are 95 available grants for this commercial rent relief grant program. So if there are more than 95 that are eligible for the grant, there will be a lottery, and up until that point, that'll be the 95. So not all eligible businesses will receive the grant funding if it exceeds that 95 number. Again, we'll go to the lottery if we exceed that. But we still, of course, apply if you are eligible for this. Do you know if there's a grant like this offered in other cities in Contra Costa County?
At this time, I don't know of that, but I do hear, you know, occasionally there's different grants. There's loans and things like that, but I have not heard of other grants like this at this time in Contra Costa County. I know earlier in the pandemic, there was some in the city of Walnut Creek and Antioch and Pittsburgh, but I have not heard anything as of recent.
As of right now, I have heard, Kevin, that Livermore is doing one.
Yeah, Livermore.
If the lease has expired, would you rather have the lease amendment extending the term?
If the lease is expired, well, that's a question I also would like, you know, to maybe, you know, talk offline a little bit. But by signing the MOU, that is going to, you know, the terms for through the end of the year between you and your landlord, that's going to set what those terms are. So if your lease is expired, we'd still like to see it for sure. But just know that when this MOU is signed and you make all the qualifications, that the tenant cannot or is asked not to evict the landlord won't be able to evict the tenant till after December 31st. Unless there's extenuating circumstances. But
And it just to be safe about everything, to make sure we have all the required documents, so we can ensure that this is correct. Uploading all the correct documents is encouraged. But again, if you have questions or if the document isn't uploading, give us a call. If we purchased a property prior to COVID, the lease documents existing at the time of purchase will be in the old ownership name. How should we handle that?
Again, these are real specific to individual properties and landlord information. If there's proof, you know, maybe the name change hasn't happened on the lease yet, that's something that will need a little bit of an explanation. So again, please, I encourage you to get a hold of us a little earlier, so, you know, we can, you know, vet that out. But the relationship from your landlord and the tenant are all going to be fairly clear in the MOU when those documents are signed by both. So that document will be the agreement, but we will need to see proof. And if it requires an explanation that there's been a name change through the COVID time, then that's something we would discuss and we could figure out. We can get through that problem. As long as, you know, there's a business license and, you know, all of the stuff, you know, that's why we're here. We can help navigate that.
So it doesn't matter if you apply April 26th or the last day. All applications will be placed in the lottery if it's past the 94 to 95 you have stated before. If the businesses are eligible and meet all the requirements, priority will be given to the 3 categories as discussed prior. So retail, restaurants, and personal services. So those will receive priority, and then the remaining businesses will go into the lottery.
Yep. And I would just encourage to apply early in case there's something amiss. We're going to be, you know, sorting them and reviewing them as we receive them. The last grant, we had a lot of people on the last day apply that didn't have all their documents in order. So we were trying to call them and email them and drive by. So please, the sooner the better. It's not a priority, but you don't want to find out, get a call from us on the last day and something's didn't transfer over properly. So that's why there's a pretty wide window to get this done to make sure that everybody's able to get their information in.
And this next question, I'm going to pull up the MOU again so everyone can see it, since it is asking about this. On the very bottom, the question is, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you guys. This by section for the landlord and the leasee, that's where the landlords and the lessees sign. Yes, so you fill out this. So this is your landlord and this is where the business will sign. So including the business license number, so we can match those back as well. So this is the box where you guys will be signing along with the landlords.
I think it's important to point out one more time, everybody needs to sign the same document.
So if you are just 1 month behind payment and the amount is much less than $10,000, you do not qualify. Is that correct?
That's correct. You need to be $10,000 in rent arrear to qualify for this specific grant.
Do you have to go to a notary to sign the document? No, you do not, especially because we know that some of the landlords aren't in the area. So as long as it just has the name, the business license, and the signatures, you are okay to then upload it. I'm a personal service business owner, but have a suite within an office complex. Do I still qualify?
Well, if you're the master tenant, you would qualify. That's pointed out in the application and the MOU as that you need to be the master tenant. You cannot be a sub leaseor, I guess that's the word, of a building. You would need to be the master tenant for that space.
Just to be clear, $10,000 in arrears as of March 31st, 2021, or as time of the application. So that is as the time by the March 31st, 2021. So it's between March 31st, 2020 and March 31st, 2021.
So it's basically your last year of rent.
Does the business that did not apply for the first grant get preference over ones that did?
Does the, no, they don't. If you applied for the last grant, you're still eligible for this grant. If you applied for the last grant and did not get it, you are not part of the preference to get it. The first groups we've outlined are the way that's going to go. This is a total separate thing. However, we have reached out to contact the folks that did apply for the first grant to make sure that they have the information necessary to get this grant, to apply for this grant, I should say.
Kevin, can you give a definition of what a master tenant is?
Well, what I can do is I'll give you an example. The master tenant would be the person that has, you know, the building. I will use, let's just say a hair salon. So in a hair salon, you may have a large salon but there may be a section off in the salon where somebody, does nails, or they have their own chair, and the main salon person may lease or rent that additional space for them to do their services in that section. So the person in that section would pay the main salon person, call it $500 a month to rent, but then that main salon person that is the master tenant would pay that up to the landlord. So that does not count. That person is a lessor inside their big salon. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, again, call us for these specifics and we can talk through it.
If my business license expired on December 31st, 2020, I am renewing our business license this week. Am I still okay to apply?
Yes, please apply.
I believe we answered this question before, but I'll reiterate it. If my lease will expire on November 2021, am I still qualified for the grant?
Yes, you are. Please apply.
Okay, let's see. Give me a moment, please, while I continue to go through these. What businesses are considered personal service?
Hair salons, barber shops, nail salons, beauty shops, massage, those types of services. Mani-pedis, all those neat things.
And again, those three outline just the priority: retail, restaurant, personal services. If there are other businesses that are at least $10,000 in rent arrears and meet the other eligibility requirements, please still apply.
Yes, that's a great point, Melissa. It's a great point. And small gyms, studios, small yoga studios, again, under 25 employees.
And just to reiterate also, this does not apply to future rent. This is applying for the time frame that you were behind at least $10,000 between March 31st, 2020 and March 31st, 2021. So this does not apply to future rent. There was a question in the Q&A about the first grant that we did. Kevin, you want to touch on that just so everyone is aware what that question was in regards to?
Yeah, the first grant was also through the City of Concord. And that was for small businesses in Concord for $5,000 grant. The application process was a little bit more detailed, but it was early on in COVID. I believe it was in last August or something like that.
Yep, last August.
And 135 recipients received $5,000 grants that they could use for payroll, PPE, and rent arrears, or, to cover rent at that time. And we did use the lottery process for that as well. And, we feel like it was very successful, and we're fortunate that the City of Concord, prioritizes small business. I mean, this is, what is this, $950,000? That's a lot of money that's coming from Measure V to help support small business. So, I'm sure everybody would agree. We wish it was more, but it is, and it is generous, and not a lot of cities are doing this type of stuff. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Kevin, do you have an idea of how many businesses plan to apply for this grant?
That's why we have these types of things. I would hope it would be, in the 200 range. But on this call, we had roughly 70 people, but those may be landlords that represent multiple business units in their complexes. So again, it's important to apply and get it in. I cannot say that enough. And also, if it does not, If you do not meet the requirements, please spread the word to some of your local business partners where this might help them. That is where the chamber and the city puts in a lot of effort to try to get the right folks that qualify for this grant so we can get the money to the right people.
So what about consulting business renting a space or tax service office? Those are not considered priority, but are still encouraged to apply.
If you meet other requirements, I would encourage you to apply.
But again, they cannot be a subleasee. So if I
Right.
have someone renting from my office, they would be a subleasee and not eligible.
Right.
If we receive more than 95 in the top 3 priorities, will they be selected by lottery?
Yes, they will. That's why it's designed that way. So if there is that many and all top 3 priorities are met, yes, they will be selected through lottery. Melissa, this is being recorded, right? So if people need
Yes,
to
this
access
is.
this information, yeah.
Yes. Yes, so this will live on the city's webpage that we have been putting in the chat, and it'll also be on the chamber website. And if you would like it emailed to you, just shoot us an email and we'll get it to you. What about acupuncture, chiropractors? Are they considered personal services?
Yes, I mean, as long as they meet the other requirements, 10,000 in arrear. I mean, they do personal services in helping people, and they need a brick and mortar store, 10,000 arrear, all the other stuff. Yes, I encourage you to apply.
We have just a couple more. I've been paying my business rental because I need a place to work. However, I haven't been paying my mortgage for 6 months because the bank allowed me to defer my mortgage. Can I apply so I can get caught up with my mortgage?
This specific grant is not for that. This is commercial rent relief program. I understand, it's not going to be for everybody, or we understand it's not going to be for everybody. But this specific grant is not for that. It would be for commercial rent relief, not for your personal home.
Since March 2020, the state made us shut down the restaurant. We had no income to pay any expense, including rent. So I'm not sure that word, to our lease. We owe much more than $10,000, but now we are open and we would not be able to pay the full rent. Again, if you can show that you were at least $10,000 in rent arrears and meet the eligibility requirements listed on the website, definitely still apply.
Yeah. And talk to your landlord, send your landlord the MOU and get that conversation started now.
So again, that timeline of that $10,000 is March 31st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. So that's the time frame that we're looking at for you to be in rent arrears. And that was the last of the questions that I see.
Well, we appreciate everybody that's come on this call and asked questions. Sometimes these things seem a little more complicated than they are. This grant relief program is about as easy as one could get, and to have it be all above board. I have to give my hats off to the city and the and council that put this all together to make it as easy as possible for the landlord and the tenant to get access to this grant funds. That's no easy task. I'm sure a lot of people on this call have done SBC, loans and grants and IDLs and all of the stuff. So, again, take a minute, familiarize yourself with everything, start talking to your landlord, get the ball rolling, reach out to the chamber if you need any assistance whatsoever. We're here to help, and let's get some money to help our small businesses continue through the end of this pandemic. It's important. $10,000 can go a long way through rent relief, and we hope that it helps the small businesses in this community. So, and lastly, I'd like to make sure that people need to realize you do not need to be a member of the Concord Chamber of Commerce to get this grant. The City of Concord and the Concord Chamber work together. So we combined our forces and our outreach efforts in an effort to get to all businesses in Concord to make sure that they see this opportunity. So just know that. And again, we appreciate everybody on this call and all the hard work that the Chamber and the city are doing for our small businesses in Concord.
All right, thank you, everyone. Again, this will be on the city's website. So if you would like to watch this recording again, you can watch it there, or of course, you can also email us any other questions that you have, or give us a call. Our contact information is in the chat. So please feel free to call us anytime. Again, like Kevin said, there are 4 of us working this, so one of us will be able to get to you. And if not, we will give you a call back or return your email as soon as we can. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day and good luck.
Thank you.